Well, it's almost that time of year, heading back to school, and that means tens of thousands of students will be attending college for the first time.
That's right.
According to a recent study published by U.S. News Data, 38% of high school students believed 1 year of college would cost around $5,000 or less. Data shows, however, that tuition at a public in-state college is at least double that amount on average in 2023. Joining us now with more on this is Emily Irwin. She's a senior director of advice for Wells Fargo. Good morning. Thanks for making time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So I want to get right into the numbers here. According to this recent study in 2023, it looks like about 34% of students will have to borrow money to pay for college. What's your advice for how we should be handling this? What's the best way to get a student loan?
To get a student loan, you want to make sure you're as thorough as possible when you fill out your FAFSA. You want to look at your private loan options as well as your federal loan options. Typically, federal loans are a little bit more advantageous because they have lower interest rates, and maybe most importantly, they have very flexible repayment options when you have start making repayments after you're done with your college years.
FAFSA's crucial. That's the free application for federal student aid. You never know what you might qualify for, so I highly encourage folks to explore that first. But one of the biggest misconceptions people have is that they only budget for tuition and they don't actually set aside money for the rest of college life. What do you think would be a realistic budget range, at least, for one semester and ways students can manage that side of things?
It really depends. And so you want to make sure you're considering things like food, books, living expenses. If you go somewhere that's going to incur travel expenses like airfare or even storage of your items between semesters or during the summer, those are all items that are really personal to you, but you want to really be detailed in your list and think about those. And when you're thinking about it, then build on some spending money and some cushion because college also is about fun. And so you want to make sure you're setting that budget for the semester and then really checking in on a weekly basis to make sure that you're allocating the right amount in a way that you don't run out of funds earlier than expected.
And, this is also a time when a lot of folks will give their kids credit cards for the first time. So what should kids know who are going into college about credit card use? I mean, is it smart to get one in freshman year?
It can be a great way to start building credit, and credit's incredibly important. It can pay dividends when that student eventually gets their first auto loan, for example, or applies to have a lease in his or her name. And so that could pay dividends in the long run. But it's important to understand great credit and good credit can pay dividends. Poor credit can also hinder you in later years. So you want to make sure that you understand, are you a co-signer or an authorized user? That will determine whether or not how payments are kind of dedicated to you or to your parents. You also want to make sure that if you're putting expenses on that credit card, you have the funds to pay them off. A great tip is to put on a recurring payment, such as a gym membership or a subscription service. And then you know the exact amount every single month. You can even have the amount automatically withdrawn from your checking or savings account to your credit card to make sure that you start getting the habit of making those on time, in full monthly payments.
Yeah, I actually prefer that advice, Emily, because what credit card companies will do is they'll target students. They'll say, hey, free lunch, sign up for this credit card, without realizing if you don't make your monthly payments, you get hit with these huge fees and that hits your score. So you're right. Choose something to pay for that you can afford on a monthly basis. Another thing young people are doing is they're sharing their Cash App handles on their social media pages, basically like with a handout saying, hey, you want to give me some money, go for it. But there are some real risks of fraud and identity theft with that. What would you advise?
Absolutely. Be incredibly private and confidential with your financial information. I would encourage students to not share those handles in social media. I would also encourage students to be very wary of any phone calls or emails that ask you to share your social security number or any sort of password information. Legitimate inquiries do not ask for that information. Really think about setting up two-step authentication for any financial institutions if that's available. That will require you to not only put in your password, but also to have a PIN sent to you in order to verify that it's you entering your confidential information in order to access your finances. You want to make sure that you set yourself up for success, not just now, but for later years as well.
Some great
Yes.
advice there. Emily Irwin, thanks so much.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.